Okay, everybody, sorry. Let me know if you can hear me this time. Sorry for the audio break. All right, can you all hear me this time? I know that for whatever reason, I tried something new, and I'm trying to add a little value each time, every day, a little new capability or a little new feature. And unfortunately, it seems as though every time you add something new, it has the potential to break the thing that you already have going well. All right, wonderful. Sorry about that, folks. But thank you for understanding. This is a brand new show. This is my 35th episode. So it's pretty new. I still am, what I was trying to do this morning is get an audio track going in the background so that I could actually test everything before I joined. But then I ran out of time. Even though I started 20 minutes before the stream, I don't want to pop this up too early, right? So I put the audio loop in and thought it was going to go. And next thing you know, no audio. So this is kind of the nature of the beast. You learn as you go. And, realistically, if the little technical things like this all get ironed out, at some point, it'll just be click and off we go. So anyways, in a way, what I'm going to be talking about today is very much in line with the stuff that I was just dealing with, because a lot of the things that I look at in life, and not just in life, but in doing a job, specifically doing something technical, is you kind of have to have the background. You kind of have to have the AI. Well, if you're going to use AI, before you use AI, you've got to put the right information in, and you have to make sure that that information is actually going to work the way you expect it to. So it's definitely one of those things where if you don't do the preparation and testing, it's really difficult to have results. So I tried to get my testing out of the way really early on today, and I was doing something completely different as well. I'm testing out a couple of different organizational methods for some of the some of the techniques for how I run this show in the background. So you can see a couple of applications I have on the desktop here. One of them is it's called TheBrain. The other one is called Raindrop. And I use these somewhat interchangeably because I'm just trying to get a grasp on which of these is going to be the best. Now, another one that I use a lot, or I've been attempting to use, I can't say I use it. I'm just trying to figure out if it's useful. And that's a big, I don't know, honestly. So this is the product called Recall. And there's a couple of different things that I try and do. So for years and years, I worked in proposal automation. And in proposal automation, when you're working in a company, like I worked at a big company called RSA prior to them getting acquired by EMC. And then, wow, they were acquired by EMC. And when I first started, we had 3 products, 700 people, and our products were all kind of the same. They were identity and access management, encryption, and I think one other web page, single sign-on, things like that. And so these technologies that they sold, it was pretty easy for me to put together a database of questions about the product and answers for things like an FAQ or an RFP or whatever, security questionnaire. So these are the kinds of simple things that I was dealing with. And all we had was a file system, and you had to go look in a folder structure to figure out where things were. So when I think about organization, I start there, and then I kind of move up from there. And what we're going to talk about today is very much about structuring data in your personal life as well as in a working world, and in how that applies in the context of using it with AI. And that's a pretty, there's a lot there. We're going to unpack a lot of that. And I don't want to, I'm getting prepared for the one other thing that didn't actually get prepared for, simply because I was trying to get this audio thing all straightened out. But so we'll do our sip in a moment. So grab your coffee cups, because I know that a lot of you would love to have this coffee cup and have a coffee before we get the ball rolling. And also, it's just nice to know that you've got all of us doing the same thing at the same time, right? So we can get kind of in sync with each other. So today, let's grab a pen or a mouse or a tablet, a computer, your brain, and a coffee cup. Fill them with your favorite thoughts. I like positive ones. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure, the creative thought of the day, a saucer full of secrets, and the second sip. It happens now. Go. All right. Well, I hope your opening for today, like I said, when I produce this afterwards, I'm going to delete a lot of this stuff out, just get rid of it, because I know a lot of folks would love to just kind of get to the content of what we're going to talk about. And I know some of you are also here just, for a little bit for camaraderie and, listen in on a familiar voice and maybe see if there's something that occurred to me this week that might be useful for you, things like that. So, dog sitting is always a worthy endeavor, because dogs are fun, right? So when I do my show, typically there's a lot of setup. And I told you before about how I smash ideas together to come out with something. And today it's a little bit of that, but it's more of an evolution of where I came from with the skill set that I have today, how I got here, and why I think it's useful in the world, and why I think you might benefit from learning a little bit about this. Because in a lot of cases, we don't even think about how we use our brains. And our brains are kind of a map to how AI works, because AI was designed to be something that emulates your brain or seems like your brain. So the first thing I'm thinking about is like talking about how we use our brains. And there's 3 or 4 different ways that we gather information out of our brain. And then there's also this applies when we talk about AI, and it helps you to think about that, because when you're starting to figure out how to organize things, it changes the nature of how you organize. So, first example, if you were going to a grocery store and you wanted to shop, right? You're getting up in the morning and you say, I'm out of this, that, and the other, and I need to go to the store, right? So you're out of coffee creamer. Now, just now, when I said that, step out of your brain a little bit and look at what just happened in your brain. I said coffee creamer, right? In your head, you probably have a picture of either your favorite coffee creamer or some generic picture of creamer, because maybe you use it or maybe you don't, right? But if you use a coffee creamer, you immediately thought of something. And you probably, if you really do use a specific one, you thought of a brand, you thought of the shape of the carton. And then if I told you I was going to the grocery store, you'd be thinking about where in the grocery store you're going to see it, where you're going to find it, what it looks like. So all of that is like right there in your head instantly, right? We immediately pick that up. And a part of our brain is thinking about the location, right? First thing is, without even thinking, from a context perspective, you instantly thought of your favorite grocery store where you shop all the time, probably one or two of them, or the closest one to you, whatever. And then you immediately thought about the cooler that the creamer would be in, or where the dairy stuff is, right? Instantly. And your brain knew, like, okay, if you're going to go there, here's how you get to it. You got to go in, get to the store, get to the parking lot, get in the front door, navigate through, you know where the creamers are, maybe they're in the back left corner of the store, and you picture how to, your brain optimizes already how to get there by walking or riding or whatever it is you do. And so that all of the context around trying to find that one cup of coffee, one creamer for your coffee, it happened in a split second. Your brain was instantly able to do it. It brought up pictures. It brought up positional coordinates. It brought up a brand name, possibly. It brought up a taste. And it brought up what it looks like in your coffee. All of those things just are right there as attributes of the thought of a coffee creamer the second somebody even started talking about it. Now, that just shows you the neural, the complexity of how fast your brain can catalog and identify something. And then what if I said, we're going to your cousin's house. Which store should we go to? And when we get there, you've been there before. This is the place you've been before. Do you remember what it looks like there? Now the map in your brain just changed, right? You instantly know, okay, I'm at my cousin's house down the street, maybe down the road or state away, 5 states away. And that particular person has a grocery store. Maybe you're used to going to Publix, but now they're going to King Cullen, and you have a whole different layout. Coffee creamers in the back right corner. And you know, this is a snooty place, so they have only the really expensive ones, right? Just saying. So you have this ability to like context switch, but now there's an association. There's coffee creamer in the snooty place at your cousin's, and there's a coffee creamer at the place you go to down the street. And by the way, there's coffee creamer at Walmart down the street. And then you could say coffee creamer, where could I get it? And your brain would know, I could go to the grocery store over here. I could go to Walmart. I could go to Sam's. I could go to Costco. Like your brain catalogs all of that and finds the connections, the pathways for all of the different elements where data connects. Now, there's a couple of paradigms on how fast we retrieve something in our brain, and also how fast you can retrieve something in when you're searching for things. So I used coffee creamer as an example. When I brought up the term coffee creamer, there could be a whole list in your brain of Coffee Mate, Mr. Coffee, Chobani, the dairy farm down the street, right? And there could be 10 coffee creamers in every single one of those categories, right? But you instantly thought of the flavor you like best. So your brain had the association, coffee creamer, the favorite one I like, which one, what brand, right? And across all of those lists of brands, you could have been looking at pumpkin spice, macchiato, Irish cream, hazelnut, whatever your flavors are, right? And you instantly bubbled up the first one, and in your brain, across all of them, hazelnut, if that was your favorite, came up across all the brands instantly, right? That search, that kind of a search is super efficient because we know what we're doing. We're finding it across multiple lists, but it's the first item because the first item is your favorite, right? So it prioritizes, your brain automatically prioritizes things by your favorite. If you sat down and said, there's 9 flavors in Chobani, it doesn't matter what the 9 items are. You're only going to care about maybe the top 3 that you like. And the rest of them, you ignore them. You don't even think about them. They're not even in your register of your favorite items. You probably don't even know what they are, right? You could have one that's dark chocolate, one made with ants. I'm just making it up. But so now you see your brain would automatically ignore the one made from ants because you'd never have it, right? Instant look of disgust on my face, you could see it, right? It's just, you don't even associate that with a favorite. You associate that with disgusting. Now, computers work kind of the same way. And the fastest possible search you could have when you're looking for something is having the like item number one on any list, and I might have 500 lists, but out of the 500 lists, if I just say I want item number one off of any of those lists, the search for that is instantaneous, right? Now, if I said there's 300 items in that list, and there's 100 items in the first list, 300 items in the second list, 500 items in the third list, and you said, I want item 25 from any of the lists, instantaneous answer. But now when you start saying, all right, I want the 500th item from the list, you're going to get an error on the first one because we only had like 100, right? It's going to be like, I don't have a 500. So that, if you can imagine for a second, when I'm sitting here having a conversation with you and I structured in my head this conversation, I already kind of talked it through when I went for my walk. So I'm not having a whole lot of ums and ahs because I don't need space to process. Because if I needed space to process because I didn't have items on the list, my brain is instantly going to say, I'm going to go make up those items, or at least infer them from what I know about other things that I may be able to answer questions. Now, your brain will make it up. Your brain is just like AI. If you don't have an answer and you ask the question, your brain is going to come up with an answer, even if it's your default of, I don't know, which ideally would be the answer you give. But on the other hand, it could say, yeah, no, I think, so I know that coffee creamers come in about 9 flavors, and I know that you probably have a dark chocolate one out there. See the See, the came in instantly because I'm struggling to find an association between items. I'm not ready to process that. I'm not ready to deliver results because I haven't had time to process. I haven't had time to organize and get it all structured. That's natural. It's very normal. And the key thing for an individual, a person, us, how do we steep ourselves in the knowledge ahead of time? That's why we study, right? That's why we take classes and familiarize ourselves with a topic and maybe make ourselves an expert in that topic so that when we actually are talking to somebody, the flow of information is right at the tip of our tongue. And here's the best part. If I'm talking to somebody else and we both took a course, the same exact course, like let's say it's anatomy and physiology. And guess what? Every single one of you will be able to associate and have a conversation with me about anatomy and physiology because you have a body, right? So when I say I have a finger, you might say which one, but I have a finger, right? So I have a right hand with an index finger. Boom. It's cataloged in your brain automatically because it's built into you. So you don't even have to think. It's all intrinsic, right? And that's something that when you take common training. Now, when I said to you, if I told you I had a tarsal injury, and you'd be like, what the heck is a tarsal? Well, if you took anatomy and physiology, you'd know that it's this portion of your foot, okay? This set of bones here on your foot, the tarsals and metatarsals, right? The tarsals and metatarsals. So if that was your foot, that would be what you're talking about. So, and I could be a little bit off. I may be forgetting my anatomy a little bit there. But if you're having a conversation with a doctor and you've studied, or two doctors are talking and both of them studied anatomy and physiology, they'll say, I need to remove and extract a tooth from the mandible. Well, the mandible is your jaw, right? So your jaw, using a fancy term, mandible, both doctors know exactly what we're talking about. And if they said it was tooth number 13 or 12 or whatever on the right mandible, they can instantly, just like you going to the grocery store and looking for that Chobani caramel macchiato, right? You know what it is, where it is, how to find it. Your brain lays out the map because you studied something in common, right? And you familiarize yourself with something ahead of time so that you become capable of having a conversation with other people trained in the same area. Now, when it comes to getting information prepared, like, when you think, a lot of people think, I can take all of my data, like I can take all of my files, everything I've ever written, all of the pictures I've ever taken, all of the work I've ever done, and I can dump it in a folder or dump it in a repository, and my AI tool will know exactly what I need. I'll just search and it'll come up, it'll find it, everything is great. But what that will, if you don't organize it in any way, shape, or form, it could take a long time. And the reason, and then if you don't actually have the right data there, you get a hallucination because the computer just wants to answer you. So it'll structure something based on what it believes is appropriate because it has a large language model of practiced data retrieval in the past, and says, I can just come up with this. It's very much like that other thing. And now I've got this whole structure, right? So take a look at the struggle that I've been having here with organizing my videos. Now I'm going to bring up the three areas that are most applicable here. Okay. So I have YouTube. Okay. In YouTube, here's all the episodes that I've done so far. And in the early days, when I first started this, I was putting an episode number on them. And then later on, I let the AI optimize for the algorithm so that people could find my videos. And ideally, it might help me grow my audience, right? So instead of me really being focused on a good title or a title that was easily cataloged, that I could instantly find what I was looking for, I let this thing come up with a title based on the content that hopefully users would find what they're looking for when they come to the video. So it's fine when it comes to having an algorithm that's going to say, show me something interesting, right? That's what this is. Show me something interesting. Just show me. I don't care. I'm not looking for a specific thing. I just want a distraction that's going to make me feel good, or I'm going to look for some, I know I'm always looking at AI. So show me some of these AI things, or show me these political things, or show me this stuff about Tesla, or show me this stuff about computers, right? All of these different topics are thrown at you because the algorithm selected for you. And the algorithm made its choices based on the title. And if we dig in deeper, maybe the description that you put, or down below, maybe a tag that you put, right? So these are all different ways to organize data. And if you organize it well and you have the ability to connect all of these things, then the algorithm knows what you have in your content that somebody might want to see. It doesn't mean you're going to, like I do an hour-long stream here. I cover a lot of topics in many cases during one of these streams. I'm not trying to make all videos about one particular topic where that I'm just talking about, like, for instance, the tool DaVinci Resolve. And if I'm looking at DaVinci Resolve, how do you edit a file? How do you tweak it? How do you modify the audio? How do you use AI to get the subtitles out? All of these possible things, I could be teaching you about how to do all of those things. And I probably will have videos like that in the future. Now, yesterday, if you stuck around to the entire ending of my video, I kind of went through what does it take for me to get the ball rolling when I start one of these streams. And it was like a step-by-step process of, I have to do this, and then I have to do that, and then I have to do that. And it's this whole process that takes you through what does it take to get everything working so that when I jump in here with you, everything is working and that I've got all of the context I need to get going. But like right now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to say, I want to dig into the content. And, so part of what I'm looking at, and these articles that I have in the background here, I'm not going to go into them, but we're going to talk a little bit about them. These are all companies that are either offering you a service or a product or a guide on how to organize your AI data before you put it into an AI repository to become a knowledge base that you're going to use with your AI. And so, the AWS thing is an introduction to preparing your own database before you point an AI at it to start working through it. Now, I told you before, I immediately go back to thinking about how I structured and organized my data when I was in proposal management and proposal automation. So because I didn't have AI when I first started with that, I used to use a date and time stamp for everything. So I would organize it by date and time, by name. And because I couldn't rely on the date modified, because that would always change. The minute you go into something, the date changes. It goes to the last day you touched it. So I had to enforce the dating by putting it in the folder name. So episode 1 was on January 17th, 2026. And I did that. I'm doing that throughout all of my streams so that I can instantly go back and find the one that I'm looking for when I'm trying to edit, right? But this still doesn't tell me about the content inside. And I want to get that, because what I'd like to do is extract a whole bunch of small little video clips that I can share with you that are specific and on a specific topic. Now, I will often talk about the same thing. Sometimes I'll talk about, like earlier in the week, we talked about compounding, right? And the reason I talked about compounding is because it has to do with being able to have an idea in your head and then build on that idea. So we talked through just a few minutes ago compounding information, because we talked about the multiple different ways you could think about where your coffee creamer was, right? What kind it was, what it tasted like, where it is. And even now, I'm invoking these things in your head by mentioning them. And also what store it's in, how many different brands are there, how many different flavors are there, how many stores locally versus how many stores out there in the world. And if you took a flight somewhere, where would you get off the flight? What would you instantly look for? What store? Like if you can't figure out where the grocery store is, maybe you'll go to CVS, because at least in CVS, everything's the same, right? You could probably get dairy at CVS and bingo. It's not your preferred place, but you know that the hotel has a CVS right there because you've been to that hotel before, right? So all of these kinds of being able to find what you want quick is the key to us being functional in the world, whether it's as an individual working in our little world, or as somebody, as a professional trying to do a job. So a lot of times, when you first go into a new job, the very first thing I start to do is I start creating this catalog, and I'll create folders like this. I might put stuff in a database, or like, actually what I use a lot is I will work with this tool. Let me go back here. I'll use this tool called Google Keep. So I'll just take boatloads of notes inside of Google Keep, and that way I can categorize it over here. I can put tags on it, and I can, figure this out. It's the starting point for me to getting ready to, be productive in a new job. And then when it comes to things like retrieving data, real hardcore things, like I'm working on videos, so I need a catalog of where all my videos are. And inside of each one of these folders is a set of files, right? One file, I can tell right off the bat by looking at it, there's my produced video. Here's one of my raw videos. And then I have, if I change the view of this, I can look at it and I can see that I have some thumbnails in here. And I have, I might have created some small videos to do an intro and an outro to my, what ends up becoming the produced video. So all of these become little elements. So if I want to say, show me all the intros for my videos, and what if I just wanted to do one video of all the intros snacking together? Well, I need to know how to find them, where to get them. Did I name them appropriately so that could I actually do something like this? I go to my streams, and then I type over here, intro. Oop, there you go. So I have a whole bunch of files that I called intro. What about subtitles? So here's a whole bunch of files that I have subtitles that I use to create the descriptions for my videos. So now, once you have all of this stuff together, if you organize it well, AI can latch onto this and really start to make sense of it. But depending on the tool you choose, you may or may not be successful in that. So here's one of the tools that I was choosing, and look at what it did. I just put all the links for all the videos, and I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice? You see, it's got the titles, but it didn't grab the thumbnails off of the videos, which would have been really helpful so that I could actually like spot the one that I'm looking for because I know what the picture looks like, right? I have to go in and manually edit every single one of these items because this tool doesn't know how to say, show me the thumbnails. So it's either I do this manual work, which is going to be a royal pain in the butt to have every single one of these items. And by the way that I got every one of these items is I had to go to the video, right? Let's go back to the creator view. I had to go to my content, pick an item, open it up. Once I opened it, I wanted to see the content. There's my thumbnail. There's the description. There's my title. And I want to go here and save it, right? So first thing is it tagged it as a podcast. That's good. That was a nice AI thing. It took the title. Wonderful. So I've got my title, but no thumbnail. What a boring, or what a pain in the butt that is. And I've got my description. So this is wonderful, right? You know, it's very, very easy. And then when I dig into it, so let's go over here. What's the beauty of this? What is the value in all of this? It's the plex. The plex in this case, here's the second sip. There's all of my episodes, and you can see the titles. So now I have something that's nice. But here's the problem I have. I want a picture. All I got is a dot. And that to me is okay, but it's not useful. It's not as useful as the thing that I really want. So then I said, all right, you know, I do know that if I'm working with websites, I can use this other tool, Raindrop, and this instantly grabs the thumbnail and it gets the title, but it doesn't grab the description and notes the way the other tool does. So here I can go see the item. And then when we click on one of these, I can click on the preview. You can see the preview on the right. If it works, there we go. It brings it up. But I have no notes. I have no other content. So it's strictly a web link, nothing more. Nice, useful. And it's fast because it's just like that thing I said about Chobani, right? I know my Chobani macchiato creamer. I instantly get a picture. So this is very visual, very useful in helping me to find what I'm looking for because it has the visual capability. And I can play around with it a little bit by saying, I just want cards, right? So that kind of reduces a little bit of the noise on the screen. I could go to the mood board. If I wanted to just get headlines, I could do that. And of course I can do a list and I have pictures. And, you know, if the pictures were bigger, that would probably be useful, but you know, so you get the idea. There's all different ways to view your data and organize your data. And but the visual is probably one of the most useful. But this Plex thing is stunning for a bunch of different reasons because you can see that there's a network of information in here and you can hop through. So let me take you through a thought experiment for a second. And give me a second. I'm gonna hop over here. I know I probably blew past the, by the way, change over to the other streaming services. But I do want to make sure that I'm looking at the messages and seeing if anybody's got anything over there. I hope I didn't just interrupt the stream. All right. So anyways, if anybody has any questions or thoughts in chats, whatever, I'm happy to field the thought if you have one, but I'm not, the chats I think are, because I fiddled around earlier, I might be struggling with getting chats that are working here. But there, I might have 2 seconds of background noise just now because I opened YouTube so I could see the YouTube chat among other things. So let me just send out a quick one. So see if it's working. Make sure if anybody there does want to give a chat, you can, and I'll be able to see it, at least on YouTube. There we go. Sweet. I got it. Okay. So now here's the thing that I am getting to. This is great because now I've got one level deep of association in all of this data. And this is that one level deep that's instant, fast. You can come up with a result really quick. This is like, what you have to go through on a day-to-day basis in order to be productive in your personal life. You can, and I'm going to take a couple of extreme examples here. And when I say extreme, I mean showing the depth of some things. So if I said, so this mapping exercise, this particular one is a tool called Recall, AI Recall, and or recall.ai. So it's a nice tool, but again, the Plex here has no pictures. And the other tool that I was using was Raindrop. It's all pictures, but no Plex. No way for me to see the associations and the networking between things. I can't really even tag them other than to have a top level tag on the left over here that says this is all my Friday topics, and here's my Friday topics, right? So these are both first level search items. And like I was saying before, when I was doing proposals, and this is one of those examples, I would create a folder structure with the product name and then a set of folders under it with dates for any other proposal that I answered that was in that list. And then we would use, because we didn't have AI per se, I would use this soft search engine called Copernic. Now, the reason I used Copernic is it was a client side. I could download it and install it on my Windows machine, point it at the folder on my computer that had all of these date timestamps so that you could get this kind of effect where I had the dates and times and different things that were in each date. And that allowed me to say, okay, I want to search this. And what I'm looking for is lobster. It would do exactly what that just did. So this would allow me on a local machine to look at my own files and find a question, a common question throughout 20 or 30 different, 20 or 30 different RFPs that I answered. And then here, what you see, these are 4 bookmarks, and lobster was the term that came up. But I still can't see where they came from. Now, maybe that doesn't matter to you, but it might matter, because if I was saying that I answered a proposal in 2022 and now it's 2026, my product probably changed a whole lot between 2022 and 2026. So I really want to filter this down and say, I don't want to see anything that's actually related to anything prior to 2025. I only want to see 2025 and 2026. So that search engine would let me filter and winnow out, and I could narrow it down to like 2 items. So, and if I change this lobster to AI, there's a ton of them, right? And over here, when I look at this, I've got, this is Friday topics, but there's 171 different bookmarks found. I can search this by relevance. I can search this by name, or I can search this by date. That's fine, but I can't search it by my collection name. It's so annoying, right? And that's how an AI feels when you give it a whole bunch of information, you dump it in, and you're expecting it to find this stuff for you without any thought whatsoever, without any effort on your part to organize this, to structure it, and to put it into a context that it can find. And then you want associations, and that's where it gets crazy. So here, this is the beginnings of my Second Sip episode library, and I'm using a tool called TheBrain. Now, TheBrain, it's a very manual tool to a degree, but I have the ability to do links, tags, and connections. So I haven't got there yet, but I'll shortly be dropping the descriptions of each one of these videos in, and the tool will actually be able to find my tags and keywords, and it'll say, oh, these are tags. And then it'll make associations between all of these different videos automatically behind the scenes using AI, and I'll have the tags instantly. Now, what's interesting about this is the way I have it set right now, my view is not showing, I'm not seeing the logos or the pictures the way I would like. There's a way to actually have these where I can expand the size of the icons. And right now, again, it's only doing an association based on the actual item. In other words, the link. So it's making that association based on the link. But I can go over here and I can do it by date. I can actually right click on this and I can say, I can open the notes. Nope, I don't want to do that. Try a different one. Thought properties. There we go. So now I can actually put a picture on this and I can put my thumbnails on here. And when I get it figured out, there's an ability for me to go into the AI of this tool and give it an actual rule. And when I give it that rule, I can say, hey, I'm actually going to, I have thumbnails and I want you to find the thumbnails in the folder that's associated with this video so that I can actually give you the results of, the pictures on all of these icons. And I can do that automatically. So but I can't do it if I don't have my thumbnails structured with titles that the AI will be able to infer what's the right title so that I can put the pictures on this. Now, when this gets a little bit more advanced, I can actually do cards. So in this view, I can now have a structured view of the cards. So this is getting closer to what I was trying to do before, where I can look at cards, I can look at a tree structure, or I can look at this network of associations. And as I get more and more associations built, this becomes a very complex view and a very, very intuitive view. So let me go back out to, let's see, I want to go to my brains. If I open this, there we go. So these are, let me give you an example of a skill tree projects, right? And actually, maybe that's not going to be a good choice because I'm looking for like the writing one here. All right, so I have a bunch of writing. And when I look at the complexity, as I drill down into some of these things, you can get so many different connections between all of the different data points that I can chase down. I can go through templates here that I know I'm connected to writing over here. And then I want to say political discussions, or I want to say hobbies and dreams, or I want to dig into, go back to writing and I want to go down to quotes. And now my quotes can go to different elements and quotes that are talking about risks. See that ability to just jump through? That's how our brains work. And that's really the idea behind why I would want to take the time to structure all my data in organizing this, my library here, so that I can find things easily. Because what I'd really like to be able to do is say, I'm going to go into the second sip, episode 6, and I'm looking for the connections between this and some other topic. When I have my topic list here, I want to be able to find the associations between topics. But here, until I get the AI working on it, that's very manual. If I go back over here to recall, it's automatic. This finds the associations automatically. And that's illustrated best when I go here and I open one of these items. It pulls in the detailed summary. And let me pick one like this one. I'm looking for, yeah. So here, now I want to find one with a lot of connections here. There we go. So there's 5 connections. This tool found those connections automatically. And if I look at it from the context of this one item, I can see all of the different things, right? So So let me take you back. I was starting a thought exercise a little bit before. Yeah, and I like Raindrop. Pinterest is good if I was working on, uh, all public facing. Now I'm looking to do something private facing so that I have a library to work from, so that I can make it super easy to find associations of all of the videos that I did where I talked about AI, and I want to find the common thread throughout. Here, I can go, let's look at Scott Adams. Look at all the different videos that I did where I mentioned Scott Adams. Huge, right? And now that is allowing me to say, okay, all I got to do is open these 6 videos. I can open those 6 videos and I should be able to find the context, the timestamp of where I talked about those. And I can ask the AI to create my description with the timestamp for those keywords or for those topics. And the associations suddenly give me something rich, meaningful, useful. And now I can say, I'm going to do like a summary of all the times I talked about Scott Adams, and I'm going to snag like the 30-second clip or 10-second clip from each one of those videos. And if they're useful, if they make sense to go together, I'm going to make a single video on Scott Adams. And it's going to be like, I talked about how Scott Adams does the skill stacking, talked about how Scott Adams mentions well, it's right here, right? Well, not all of it, but how Scott Adams might talk about the fake because, how he talks about, and you see how the ums weren't happening before when I had everything composed. I'm trying to create a set of neural network associations. And if I go back, it's still, even because it's a layer deep, I still have the I can't help it. It's giving my brain is saying, give me a second, hang on. I need a little time to get that association so I can navigate into what you're asking me to give you. And that's what this whole exercise is about, is what is it that we are doing in order to structure our lives a little bit, right? So before you even, have you ever done this? Have you ever said, like my wife and I will talk about going out, and our mission is to eat healthy, okay? We want to go to a restaurant, but we want to eat healthy. So what do? Before we even go to the restaurant, we go to the website, we pull up their menu, we look at the menu, and we decide before we even go, based on what we know will be healthy and appetizing, and we have it in our head before we even walk in the door. And the only thing that's likely to change our mind is if they tell us the specials and something sounds fantastic, right? And that might take us off of our preconceived plan. But when you think about, I'm going to go shopping, what do you do first? You make a list. You make a list, and then what does your brain do for you? You say, well, I need parsley, I need some panko breadcrumbs, and I need some pasta, and I need some sauce, right? Those are the 6 items on your list. Before the minute you look at that list, your brain immediately starts mapping out where in the store you're going to go. And that's one of the best parts about having a list. And if you take advantage of those shopping list apps, the shopping list apps will do things to make your life even easier. They will say, we know exactly what row things are in, or whether it's around the edge, it's at the front, it's at the back. And so what it does is it thinks about what you would do walking in, and it tells you, well, you're going to probably start to the right, because to the right is the outside edge, plus it's at the beginning of row 1, which is whatever it is, right? And so now it lays out the menu and says, all right, when you go shopping, here's your produce items, because that's on the right. And then the bakery is right behind it. And then I know you're going to come into row 1, and row 1 has all of the ingredients, all of the things that are available in row 1. And it'll actually order your list in a way that structures the map for you before you even go. And that makes your shopping experience so easy. It doesn't make you follow the map that it created, but by grouping things into the rows and the produce section and the meat section and the dairy section, by grouping it into those things, you know, the minute you go into the produce area, the list brings up all your produce requests. So you don't go walk in, grab the parsley, go get the panko breadcrumbs, and then head off to the dairy to get some cream, and then come back to get some basil because that was in the second recipe you're working on, right? You don't do that back and forth and you walk 20 miles of 20,000 steps in your grocery store because your brain is efficiently trying to use your body in the most efficient path possible, right? And we want to be able to do that with it. In order to be effective at what you do on your day-to-day life and what you do in your working day and how you structure data in your world for either personal or work, thinking through a few things ahead of time helps you to make sure that when you get there, things work and they work smooth. In a lot of cases, I get called in to help customers with their AI. And what ends up happening is the help that I give them is really about structuring their data. I mean, probably 50% of the work is structuring the data. And once you structure the data properly, then some of the data structuring that I've done recently, people were trying to get answers and they were getting about 20% good results. I went in and I discovered that some of their data was not good. In other words, it was a PDF file, for example. You open the PDF file and you try and search, you couldn't search. Why? What I discovered as I was interviewing the data, looking at the data and exploring the data, is I discovered that it was a Word document that had been saved as a PDF document, right? And in the process, let me take that back. It was a PDF document with write protections on it that had been saved out to a Word document. And then the Word document was then PDF'd again in order to be used in the system. The write protection in the Word document, it inserted random spaces throughout all of the words so that when you tried to search anything in Word, nothing worked. Absolutely nothing worked. You couldn't find anything. And then when they PDF'd it again, they PDF'd it so that it could find images because for whatever reason, the search tool wouldn't find images in the Word document. It was a caveat of the AI. But in the PDF version, it could find it. So they had taken this PDF that was write protected, saved it as a Word document. The write protection effectively corrupted the Word document. And then they saved it as a PDF so that you could find images. So they couldn't find a single word. They couldn't even find the titles of the images that were in the PDF. So your AI couldn't find anything. It was incapable of working because the data was ultimately corrupt, even though it really wasn't. If you looked at it, you could figure it out. I could figure it out. All I had to do was go to the table of contents and say, look at what I need this and I need that. Oh, it's on page 74. Go down to 74. Oh, there's the image, right? Super easy for us because we're not bound by the constraints that the AI is, which is only read from these files. And by the way, you can't act on these files. You can only read them. So you dump in the stuff and it goes, well, I can't find anything because it's not searchable. And I can't find any complete words because they stuck all these spaces in the words. There's like time is T-I and M-E. So I got two words, T-I, T, and M-E, me. So I found me. If you look for me, I found that all over the place. But I couldn't find time. You mentioned time like 64 times in this document. So these are the problems that exist in data ahead of time. And we experience this in our every single day life. When you think about how easy it is to talk about something you know well versus when you don't know something well and you stick ahs and ums to give your brain processing time. When you go to a store and you're like, I've never been in this store. I don't even know where the heck is the dairy section? You have to walk all the way around a store at least once to orient and figure out where the heck the dairy is. Or worse still, you park your car in a parking lot and the parking lot looks like every other parking lot you've ever parked in. And you don't know, that it's like, maybe it's on level 2 and somewhere. Think about when you go on a vacation and you park in a parking lot on level 4, spot 278 out of 500. And you're like, can't remember where the heck I parked. Because when I got out of the car, I was so excited about going on the flight to go to the vacation that I didn't even pay attention to where the heck I parked. And my phone wasn't on, so it can't find it. and you're like, where the heck is my car? Right? And you, so you see what I'm saying? These are things you get used to. Like because I traveled so much, I had that problem a lot where what I would do is I'd hold up my keys and I'd hit the horn button and where the heck, beep, beep. Oh, there it is. It's away. And I can orient based on sound and figure out where the heck my car was, you know? Now I will tell you, it's much easier. I open my Tesla app because I have a Tesla and I say summon and the car comes to me. Much easier. So there are so many different ways to structure data and understand it. But I hope in the practical application of this for your own life, you think a little bit about some of the things that you actually do to structure data and really understand how in your own head, when you recognize that you are doing ahs and ums, just, you know how you talk in a car to yourself or when you're alone and you just talk out loud? Try giving kind of a talk on something that like you're going to go to a party tonight and you want to have a few things on the tip of your tongue because you know that the party happens to be, you got your family members there, right? And you haven't seen your family members in 10 years. So you want to go back and think about your memories of each person that you remember as a kid, right? And hey, John, you remember that time when we got in trouble because we kicked over all the trash cans for no reason at all, and we got in deep trouble for that? Do you remember that? That was a day, wasn't it? So you have these things on the tip of your tongue. Many times they'll be there when you walk up in that you see that person's face, and you instantly get that chuckle of like, oh my God, I remember what that stupid thing we did. But you want to be able to maybe be a little more conversant because you're going into a crowd of people at a party you've never met before. It's a Christmas party. So you think about all the people in your neighborhood that go to a Christmas party and what do you know about them where you can have an association with them? And the reason you want to have these human connection associations is when we have something to associate with each other, we actually remember each other better. So for example, we have a second sip. That's a commonality amongst us because if you start this show at the beginning, I try and do the second sip with you, and that's a common bond that we have, right? And that association, if we all come together, every single one of us, if we did a Scott Adams meetup or a second sip meetup, and I said, hey, you know what? I'm going on a vacation and I'm going to be in Dallas. Everybody that lives in Dallas, come that is in my show, come, we'll have a second sip together. Boom. Instantly we associate with each other, even though I don't know a single one of your faces. I don't know any of your names, but we know the sip. We know that one thing. And that gives us something to start and have a conversation and open the door to a bigger network of people that we can connect to and have relationships with. So it is pretty important having all of these things, being able to leverage them not only in AI and in some kind of working context, but in your own personal life. I know when I learned sales and I started to recognize there's a technique to how you introduce yourself to somebody. And if you do it right, it's smooth and easy. And you can actually connect, which is what you really want to do when you're a salesperson, without scaring people off. Because the minute you're a salesperson and somebody walks in, they're like, I don't want to talk to a salesperson. Just let me browse. Leave me alone, right? Happens all the time. So we had this amazing technique, especially it works at trade shows. Used to work in big old time furniture stores where you had just like a warehouse full of furniture and people were looking around for their favorite couch. And the technique was, it's like goose hunting. Okay. You want to know that you want to inspire people to be able to come to you, but you don't want to scare them, because if you scare them, they'll fly in the other direction. So a goose hunter has a technique. What they do is they have this little goose call and they go, wah, wah. And what do they want to do? They want to bag the goose, right? The goose doesn't want to be bagged. It knows that might happen. So if you said, hey, geese, come here, the geese would be like, oh, it's one of those people with those guns. Forget that. And if you said, if you wanted to signal them to come to you and you shot in the air to say, hey, you heard the shot, come here so I can shoot you. You think they're coming to you? Heck no, right? So what do? You sit down quietly, you keep all of the noises that might actually scare it off to a minimum, and then you go, wah, wah, and you just keep doing it and you keep doing it. And the goose will eventually kind of come in your direction and figure out, where's the goose over there? I hear a goose. Maybe I can go hang out with my geese friends, right? And it gets close, and then you go, bang, right? Horrible, I know. But this is how the goose call works in retail or in a trade show. So you're out there in a store, and if you walk up to somebody and say, hey, I work for XYZ furniture company, and I want to sell you a furniture thing. And they're like, leave me alone. I don't want to be shot. I don't want to be bagged. I don't want to be sold, right? But if you just, when they first come in, you go, hello. They go, oh, that's a human being. Okay, I still don't want to be bothered, but, and then you say, do you have any questions? And they, that's typically one of the worst things you can say, because they're like, no, I don't want to be sold. But then you say, have you seen our sale items? Or we have a special. And you just stop with that. We have a special. And they go, oh, well, I like specials. Let me go talk to that guy. Next thing you know, they're coming back to you and they're talking to you. But as a person, you never move from where you started. You never move, because the minute you move, you scare them off. I've literally walked up to, when I worked at a computer store, I walked up to a customer, a person walking in, and I walked towards them, and she literally turned around and ran away. No joke. I mean, just like ran away. I don't know if it was the goatee or, because I had a much darker goatee years ago. And people would be like, So that kind of thing happens. And you want to be able to figure out how to make it not happen, because otherwise you don't sell anything. And if you don't sell anything, you don't bring any food home. Because back in the day when I sold things, we only worked on commission. There was no hourly wage. You didn't get paid for showing up. You got paid for what you sold. So you had to figure these strategies to, at least make a few sales, or your day was wasted, right? Same thing goes in your everyday life, going to a party, doing things that you do for work, having these strategies that helps you in functioning in your processes. And when it comes to AI and information, you want to know how to make sure you can organize things so that you can find what you're looking for, and not only find it, but get the best quality information out at the moment you need it without having to even think, because you've structured it well, and the AI goes, I know exactly what you're looking for. So that's the whole thing. And by the way, I'm going to mention it over here. CWSA Sipper, Coffee with Scott Adams Sipper, mentioned the Scott Adams coffee meetup in Kansas City. I don't know if that's going to be visible to you. It should be in a minute or two. But so that was the one that happened. So I'm only putting it up there so that you can see it, because if it turns out that there'll probably be more of them. But if you